20 to 25,000 polar bears worldwide, 19 are distinct in subpopulations. 60% and 8% live in Canada. Before 1973, several bears populations were unsustainable hunting by Europeans, Russian, American hunters, trappers from the 1600s through the mid-1970s. 2005, a decline in the total global bear population of more than 30% within 35 to 50%. In 35 to 50 years. Today, polar bears are among the few large carnivores that are still found in roughly than their original habitats. Ranged some places in roughly their natural numbers. In 2011, studies found that 7 in 19 populations were declining. If current warming trends continue unable, scientists believe that polar bears will be vulnerable to extinction within the next century by 2040. Okay. How does global warming affect polar bears? Polar bears are found in the Arctic and the surrounding land masses. There are 19 recognized subpopulations and estimates places the numbers about 20,000 to 25,000. Polar bears are classified as vulnerable by the World Conservation Union and listed as a threatened species. Polar bears are affected by several factors, including hunting, pollution, and oil extraction. Most hunting, particularly following the introduction of snowmobiles, airplanes, and icebreakers, led to a huge decline in certain subpopulations. The introduction of the International Agreement of the Conservation of Polar Bears in 1973, which restrict or even ban hunting in some um, circumstances, consequently resulted in an increase in polar bear numbers. Not all subpopulations are affected to the same degree by climate change, and while some subpopulations were studied, for others there is insignificant data to broad statements about their current past numbers. um, how to save polar bears, some possible solutions, social interactions, vote for political representatives who recognize that a carbon-based society is sustainable and who will work to establish an appropriate price for carbon. Um, encourage members of your social circles to adopt sustained lifestyles. Transportation, walk or ride a bike. Use public transportation. Avoid drive-through businesses. Don't idle more than 30 seconds. Home and your work. Insulate buildings and heat and cool with efficient systems. Generate your own power with wind and solar. Use no more water than needed. The dining table. Buy and cook only what you eat. Don't waste food. Consume foods that are minimally processed and packaged. Purchase fruits and veggies grown locally and organically on small farms. On marketplaces, minimize consumption, reduce, reuse, recycle. Research vendors and buy from those who sustain business models. Buy products created closer to home. For example, if you live in the U.S. or Canada, purchase goods made in North America instead of those shipped far away. Um, how to save the polar bears? Um, the team picked 5 scenarios for the greenhouse gas emissions and plugged them into a climate model developed by the National Center of Atmospheric Research in Boulder, Colorado. The scenarios range from the business as usual to aggressive cuts that reduce CO2 levels to the 2000 concentration of 368 ppm. The researchers found that no evidence of a tipping point that would lead to sudden loss of sea ice. Instead, all of the model scenarios showed that sea ice would decline at a steady rate as global mean annual temperature loss. This is the first time that the issue of the tipping point has been considerably within the content of polar bears, says wildlife biologist. Um, to figure out what reduction is in the greenhouse gas emissions would mean for the fate of polar bears, the researchers compared the rates of the sea ice loss under the various scenarios as they report online today. Um, Some organizations that help the polar bears. One of the all-exclusive organizations is the National Research Defense Council. It focuses is more on the polar bear habitats rather than the bears themselves. But polar bears benefits from the group efforts. The NRDC is composed of 1.3 million members and has a five-star rating of the Charity Navigator, a nonprofit watchdog organization. SeaWorld is also involved with conservation efforts to protect polar bears. The Hub SeaWorld Research Institute has done studies on polar bear habitats and abilities to assist with conservation. Um, the Polar Bear Specialist Group, founded by the Hub SeaWorld Research, is concerned with just polar bears, a special conservation group working with an international union for conservation of nature. Its mission statement says, in part, that will coordinate, synthesize, and distribute scientific information necessary to guide the long-term viability of the polar bears. Um, a word of caution. There are several organizations that can be found on the internet with the word polar bear in their name that may or may not actually work for the benefits of polar bears. Though there are many organizations doing good work, there are also those that are putting donations to good use. Always check with a charity watchdog group such sending for donations. Overview of wildlife protection organizations. There are many organizations whose mission is to foster awareness of the problems faced by wild animals, such as the Humane Society of the United States advocate for all animals, while other advocates for wild animals. I definitely just said that. And um At the 2009 meeting of the IUCN Polar Bear Special Group, scientists reported that the subpopulations of polar bears in 2008, eight are declining, three are stable, one is increasing. By comparison, in 2009, five were declining, five were stable, two were increasing. Canada's Western Hudson Bay population, um, since the 1980s, directly related to earlier icebreaker on Hudson Bay and Western Canada, declined the survival rates in the weight of skull size of adult males. Polar bears have adapted to living near the farthest tip of the northern hemisphere. They live on the Arctic territories of the North America. They are distributed in the following countries: Canada, Russia, Norway, Greenland. Their habitats include both sea ice and land. Their current population is estimated 21,000 to 25,000 left in the world. Um, so that's the end of my presentation.